Hey there guys, welcome to my reaction to the new Resident Evil 9 gameplay that was shown in the demo. Now unfortunately, the demo is not playable to the public yet, it's only available at Gamescom, but some people have managed to capture gameplay and posted it onto YouTube, and now I'm reacting to it. So, I'm actually quite interested in this particular demo. I mean, there's not much gameplay. It's showing a lot of stealth mechanics, and it shows only the new Stalker enemy, and there's definitely some things worth reacting to for sure. And we also get a file here. There are also some other assets as well. But let's get into this. So, I did trim out some parts of the gameplay to focus on the more important bits, but this first part that I've included is a file that you get at the start of this demo. And this is after Grace frees herself from having her blood drained while upside down. But right here we have this progress notes file where Grace was being prepped for further examination while having her blood drained. Dexafil was administered, but I don't know why it's spelled like that. It's Dexafil, not Dexifil. And Dexafil is supposed to be used as a way to prevent the release of substances in the body that cause inflammation and also suppresses an overactive immune system. So I don't know why the spelling of Dexafil is wrong. Someone was doing something to Grace, and the Resident Evil podcast team theorized that maybe Grace inherited the daylight antibodies from Alyssa. But I'll talk more about that when I get the chance. Right here, you have the ability to use bottles as distractions. It's an empty bottle, and you have specs here, so you can use the bottles as a way to damage enemies briefly, but it's mainly used for distracting enemies. And I question if this is supposed to be an ingredient as well, because it says an empty bottle with a faint medicinal smell. So I do wonder if you can combine this with a green herb to actually create a first aid med. So that would actually be an interesting idea, to use a crafting ingredient as a gameplay mechanic for other purposes. In this case, distracting enemies. That could be interesting. But here we have this hallway that was shown in the first trailer. There's the horse statue. This area is incredibly dark, but there's a reason for that. It's because this BOW in this demo is vulnerable to light. Not just sunlight, just light in general, which confuses me because light from these lamps here doesn't emit the same sort of spectrum as sunlight. So it shouldn't really be causing these kinds of disorders. Unless this BOW is some kind of failed experiment, and this light vulnerability is one of the factors that led to it being considered a failure. Unless there's some kind of enzyme missing from this particular BOW that causes it to react negatively to light. Maybe for all we know, this BOW is some kind of clone, and this exposure to light is somehow breaking down its cellular structure greatly, which is why this breakdown of the cells is expressed more like a melting phenomenon rather than some kind of burning sensation. So that melting phenomenon is likely related to the fact that it's a clone. Those are the only theories I have on the matter.
Dead.
So the objective of this demo is to get the fuse to open this door. And also, when you interact with that, there's some kind of broadcast happening on the other side. Or maybe it's someone else talking. Here's a key. And as this person mentions, you can switch from first to third person in the options menu. But there are times in this gameplay where it really seems like the game just switches to a different perspective on its own. But you're inside of a hospital ward, it seems, or a psychiatric ward. All it says is just ward. So there's all this stuff, and then you use this key to open this door right over here. And in this room, you can find an empty ink ribbon tin. So I'm guessing it's empty because you can't use ink ribbons in this demo. And then you also find the lighter here. So this is her using the lighter. So you press up on the D-pad to use the lighter. So I'm guessing it's some kind of equipable system. I'm surprised the lighter has to be equipped in the same way as a weapon by using the D-pad. I guess it's like Resident Evil Revelations 2 in the Struggle DLC, where you had to assign the flashlight to one of your D-pad buttons. So right here, we get this one. I have no idea how this guy just busts out the door, even though he's dead. That just seems rather odd that the door just violently opens and there's dead bodies here. This isn't even a locker. That's pretty odd. I'm not entirely sure how long this guy has been dead. Seems fairly recent.
He's dead.
I don't know if this is the best way to actually inspect the body, especially when it's infected.
Infected.
You know, I do like that she acknowledges that this body is infected because it's tying back to her training. I do like that little detail. It's nice that they're actually using a character's professional background in this context. I know it's something that's been in plenty of other Resident Evil games, but I just like that they're acknowledging it here. And again, this is an infected body, so it just seems odd that she would be inspecting it without any gloves. Like, what if this was a bloodborne disease? I mean, contact with any sort of infected body, if this is even the T virus, I'm not even sure what virus this is. It seems to be a virus of some sort, just based on what the trailers have shown. But while she's inspecting the body, the stalker comes in. Not too sure why it has such an interest in the body, and it doesn't seem to react to Grace's lighter for some reason, even though it can actually see where it's going. I'm not even sure if this thing is blind. It knows when it's in a light source, and it seems to know where it's going, but it could also be that it has highly developed echolocation, because it really should be noticing Grace here. But when you're in third person, Grace will do unique animations when sprinting. Yeah, she actually stumbles to the ground like that when in third person. And I believe I heard a reviewer say that the stalker is slowed when you're in third person, but when you're in first person, it's a bit faster because, of course, you don't do these kinds of animations when in first person. So it's not just the camera perspective change. There are some mechanical differences between the first and the third person perspective. Of course, I'm going to be playing this game in first person because I trust the hitboxes on enemies' attacks to work a bit better if I'm in the first person perspective compared to the third person perspective based on what I played with Resident Evil Village in the third person perspective, because there were some hitbox issues in the third person mode, which is why I'll be doing the first person. Plus, I just like the first person mode more so than the third person mode in this case. She stumbles a lot, which is quite surprising. I don't really see why anyone would stumble that many times. But I don't know if that's just playing upon her personality, where she's like socially awkward, as that first trailer seemed to show. And you know, in the second trailer, which was supposed to be the gameplay trailer, which was honestly quite underwhelming, it's the one where Grace is with Alyssa in that hotel. Like, she's focusing so much on her computer because she's so invested in her work while still kind of acknowledging Alyssa. But I just don't understand why they would make that a gameplay trailer. It doesn't show anything. I mean, I think the only reason why it was so limited is because the demo released at the same time as that trailer for Gamescom. But even still, though, as a trailer for the wider public, why would you showcase that and call it a gameplay trailer when it's mainly cutscenes and only seconds of walking? It just doesn't make sense. I'll say it, guys, the marketing for Resident Evil 9 really isn't that good, and it sucks because poor marketing can at times undersell an exceptional piece of media. You know, a great example of this is Transformers 1. Transformers 1's marketing was atrocious. It was making out Transformers 1 like it was some cringe comedy, but when you watch the film, it's actually amazing. So I don't know what Capcom's marketing team is doing, and I don't even know if it's old Capcom or new Capcom that's handling this game. I know the director of Resident Evil 7 is handling this game, which excites me, but at the same time, Ampo-san, the director of Resident Evil 5, directed Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is the worst mainline Resident Evil title I've ever played, due to its poor story, poor character designs, and poor gameplay, among other factors. That was just a clear showcase of how the mighty have fallen, and I just hope to God that Resident Evil 9 is not going to showcase another director falling from their pedestal. But you'll see right here, the stalker will react to the light. If this stalker had vision, it should have already seen the light, but it didn't seem like it realized there was light in this room. But you can't see it very well, but the stalker's skin is melting, it's sizzling. It's almost like this BOW has some form of xeroderma pigmentosum, which causes it to have an extreme sensitivity to ultraviolet radiation from the sun, and also some artificial lighting, but it just seems very exaggerated. I'm not really sure what the point of this is. And I had a theory that this aversion to light is somehow tied to the daylight vaccine from Resident Evil Outbreak, since we know Alyssa Ashcroft first premiered in that game, but it just feels like they gave this BOW an aversion to light because of the fact that the vaccine in Outbreak was named Daylight. So it's almost like a form of meta communication between the developers and the player, but it's just really odd that they would do it like that. But it could speak to some greater story point within this game. And by the way, the AI on this enemy seems to be very dynamic, almost like the Xenomorph from Alien Isolation.
What the hell was that thing?
God, look at Grace's hair, too. Look at the way her hair lights up from the lighter. That's quite cool. But you come into this room here, and there is a med injector, and it seems odd that they would use a med injector, and I'm surprised it's not a blue umbrella med injector. It's just a generic med injector with no sort of branding on it. The only individual we've seen use med injectors is Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 7 and Village. So it's interesting that they're bringing back the med injectors for some reason. I'm surprised it's not like a first aid med. But yeah, just no kind of branding, no sort of umbrella emblem. I mean, if this is supposed to be taking place in the ruins of Raccoon City, but this BOW is coming here right now. And again, it doesn't notice the lighter, so it's possibly blind. And this BOW will also have the ability to destroy hiding spots, as we'll hear right here. Yeah, so it breaks the environment apart. And I heard some reviewers saying that if you hide in the same spot multiple times, this BOW will actually destroy the hiding spot then. So it's like that kind of dynamic AI system. But again, like the game looks really nice. And again, the video that I'm showing right now is of a low quality. It's not the person's fault, it's my fault because I can't get this video of a higher quality. Right there, this BOW broke through the doors, which seems to be another dynamic thing. Same with like Jack Baker breaking through that wall in the Baker estate. And you'll notice this BOW doesn't enter the room. And the fact that it's able to recognize that and not make the same mistake again almost implies it can see, so it's a bit odd. It's really confusing how this BOW's ability to navigate and actually see light sources works.
Don't come any closer!
But see, another dynamic moment. So this BOW decided to come from the ceiling, even though Grace was nowhere near a scripted event. But this guy is going to use the bottle to distract this BOW. So you just aim it like normal, and you just throw it. And here's Grace being startled by the thunder. She's very sensitive to those kinds of things. But you get the fuse right here, and this is when a cutscene plays. I wonder why they opted for this particular moment to play another cutscene. So you have to make a mad dash for the door and get out of there. And then this is a cutscene that no one else has been showing. I've only seen one channel showcase this cutscene that occurs at the end.
Come on, come on!
Also, listen to that again. Did you hear that scream? Did you hear that scream? I have not played Resident Evil 1 Remake in years. And I know exactly what that scream is. That is Lisa Trevor's scream sound effect from Resident Evil 1 Remake, which released in 2002. So I have no idea why they are using a sound effect from 2002 with this particular BOW. That is just so odd. And it's the same when she was getting stunned by that light source and she went back up into the ceiling. It sounds exactly like Lisa Trevor's screams. So I'm questioning if that's supposed to be some misdirection from Capcom, where they're trying to use that sound effect from 2002 to make the player believe that this is Lisa Trevor, but I'm not going to fall for it, especially since we know that in Resident Evil 1 Remake, Lisa was missing a part of her face and she had to use the faces of other victims she killed in order to reconstruct a portion of her face, which was very crude and obviously not very human. Not to mention she perished in the mansion explosion when Wesker pinned her underneath that chandelier in Resident Evil The Umbrella Chronicles. And people have assumed that this BOW is also Alyssa because of the blonde hair, and they feel like there's more story significance if this BOW is supposed to be Alyssa, because Alyssa was of course a big character in Resident Evil Outbreak, and to just kill her off right here. And we know this game takes place during or after 2024, given that Grace's boss mentioned that Alyssa's been dead for 8 years, and we know she was alive in 2016. Therefore, 2024 is the minimum possible year that this game takes place in. We can see right here, look, the skin is melting, it's sizzling, it's reacting very violently to just the regular light, which is so odd. Like, how messed up is this BOW's biology to not even have the necessary enzymes to cope with light exposure? That just seems odd. The only other time we've ever seen a BOW exposed to sunlight and actually display an adverse reaction like this was with the Queen Leech from Resident Evil 0. So this would imply it's the T-virus. But again, based on what I said before, where Alyssa Ashcroft is from Resident Evil Outbreak and the daylight vaccine was introduced in that game, it just feels like the developers are trying to call out the daylight vaccine cutscene by having this BOW be averse to light. That's the only thing I can think of. So like, it's clearly some viral vector that we're dealing with in this game. Like, look how much this skin is melting. And I don't know if this BOW is capable of repairing itself through some kind of regeneration, if it experiences some damage. Again, that Lisa Trevor scream. I'm not really sure where Grace was going because there's no way to actually escape if she goes in that direction. But yeah, 3 times in a row this BOW dragged her by the leg. And then she doesn't even die right here. I mean, did this BOW go away or something? And that's it. I hope to God that there is a playable demo. It'd be really fun to experiment with the gameplay here. I hope we get to see more trailers, for sure. I can't wait to see what they'll actually show with Raccoon City and if there are any other existing characters returning, because there's been rumors that Leon's in this game, despite what Capcom has mentioned about Leon not returning in this game. Like, what does all this stuff that we're doing in this world have to do with the ruins of Raccoon City? They said they called this game Resident Evil Requiem because it's a requiem to those who perished in the Raccoon City disaster. So how all this will tie into Raccoon City, we don't know. But I'm actually interested in what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, when I play the demo, if the demo's bad, it's going to really lower my expectations of Resident Evil 9, but hopefully that is not going to be the case. But this is the end of my reaction video. Stay tuned for future Resident Evil 9 content that I'll react to. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.